This is the AEW Collision September 21, 2024 full show results video which takes place at MassMutual Center in Springfield, Massachusetts. The show started with a bunkhouse brawl match between Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara versus Undisputed Kingdom's Mike Bennett and Matt Taven for the ROH World Tag Team Championship. In the end, Dustin wraps barbed wire around his right boot and Sammy is holding Bennett in the corner as he kicks Bennett between the legs. Dustin then drops Bennett with a kendo stick and Sammy sets up the ladder and is on the top, coming down with a huge moonsault and gets the pinfall, and Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara win the match, and retain the ROH World Tag Team Championship. Lexi was backstage about to talk to the conglomeration but the premier athletes showed up to say they should be interviewed. Smart Mark Sterling said they were here to make sure there were no shenanigans and he won't be hit in the privates again. Mark Briscoe says he only sees on single shenanigans, and it's Sterling, is that the word of the day, O'Reilly wonders. They go back and forth a bit more, and the conglomeration is in action next. Before all that, Evil Uno is interviewed by Lexi and she mentions Darby Allin has a big match with Jon Moxley coming up at Grand Slam and Uno gets upset about talking ahead as though he's not having a match with Darby tonight. Allin pulls up to say they aren't having a wrestling match, they're fighting, there is a war coming, he says, and Moxley thinks they're all jokes. He won't lay down and die. He's going to show the people the difference between them tonight when they fight and promises to lead AEW as a world champion into the future. Darby yelled at Uno to show the dog he has in him and to show him that he's not just trying to collect a paycheck. This isn't a joke anymore. The next match happened between Mark Briscoe, Kyle O'Reilly, and Hologram versus the Premier Athletes, and the result of this match was Mark Briscoe, Kyle O'Reilly, and Hologram won the match by pinfall. We go backstage with MXM Collection saying they gave Max Caster's jacket a makeover. MXM Collection pulled a covered jacket and said they will unveil it at the Grand Slam episode of Collision for New York Fashion Week. The next match happened between Mariah May versus Lady Frost, and the result of this match was Mariah May defeated Lady Frost by pinfall when Frost hits May with elbows to the face, then kicks, followed by a big slap. May fires back and drops Frost on her head, May kicks Frost and then drops her with a Storm Zero to get the win. We then go backstage with Lexi Nair talking to Willow Nightingale and Willow says her back is okay and she doesn't need to deal with Stokely Hathaway. Willow says she will be watching Yuka Sakazaki challenge Mariah May and Deonna Purrazzo and Taya Valkyrie come in and offers protection to Yuka and the women exchange words as Taya challenges Willow to a match on Rampage and tells her she will kick her ass. Back from the break, the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn are backstage with Max Caster doing a rap trashing talking MXM Collection. The next match happened between Darby Allin versus Evil Uno, and the result of this match was Darby Allin defeated Evil Uno by pinfall when Allin grabbed a belt, taking out Reynolds and Uno on the floor. Allin goes to the top rope and lands a big coffin drop on Uno and Reynolds on the floor. Uno is back in the ring as Allin climbs to the top rope and lands on Uno with a big coffin drop to get the 3 count. We get a recap of Hangman Adam Page from Wednesday's Dynamite. After the video recap is a backstage segment from After Dynamite with Renee Paquette talking to Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett, and Jeff challenges Hangman Page to a lethal match lumberjack strap match for Dynamite Grand Slam. The next match happened between Queen Aminata versus Serena Deeb, and the result of this match was Serena Deeb defeated Queen Aminata by pinfall when both women roll each other up for near falls and the Queen hit the ropes, as Deeb dropped her with a leg drop. The Queen headbutts Deeb, sending her to the floor, and Aminata goes to the floor and sends Deeb back in the ring as we get this is awesome chance. Then Deeb leg sweeps Aminata and then hits her with the detox for the win. We go to a recap from Rampage with Saria challenging Jamie Hayter to the Saria Rules match at Grand Slam. We then go backstage with Renee Paquette talking to Saria and Harley Cameron, and Saria says this match is all over England and has been in her family for years. Cameron then pulls out a piece of paper going through all the rules of the match, and Cameron then crumbles up the piece of paper, putting it in her mouth to end the segment. The rules for the match is as follows. There are no rules except for the following. You cannot use weapons unless you are Saria. You must obey the 10 count unless you are Saria. No biting, choking, closed fist, hair pulling, or groin kicking unless you are Saria. No hammerlocks, Saria never liked those anyway. No outside interference, unless you are a friend of Saria's. No rope breaks, unless you are Saria. The match must only begin with offense from Saria. Jamie Hayter is a slag. The winner receives an autographed copy of Saria's autobiography, available now for pre-order. Then we saw an all-star 10-man tag team match between FTR, Hook, and the Outrunners versus Roderick Strong, the Beast Mortos, Rush, and the Grizzled Young Veterans. The result of this match was Roderick Strong, the Beast Mordos, Rush, and the grizzled young veterans won the match by pinfall when Mordos is then dropped by Dax with a big drop. Mordos then takes out Dax as Rush hits Dax with the bull by the horns to get the win for his team. We go backstage with Serena Deeb as she talks about how she beat the hell out of Queen Aminata, and Deeb then challenges Britt Baker to a match at Dynamite 5. We go to Nigel Mcguinness on the entrance ramp and he says that Bryan Danielson has refused to answer his challenge and is hiding behind a fake injury. Nigel shows his shirt that says Bryan fears Nigel. Nigel then says if he won't wrestle Nigel for his family, he needs to do it for the fans. Tony Schiavone then interrupts Nigel and says he has to say something, and Tony says he sees what Nigel is doing. He says that Nigel's claims are ridiculous and that Danielson is not afraid of Nigel, and Tony reminds Nigel that he is not medically cleared. Tony tells Nigel that Bryan is the best wrestler he has called in his career, and Nigel then says if anyone else would have said that to him, he would have taken them out. Nigel then tells Tony to go to the commentary table and shut his mouth, and then goes to the ring and says he wants Bryan to meet him in the middle of the ring for their final rivalry. Nigel says when he retired, nobody listened or believed him when he shouted that he was as good as Bryan Danielson. Nigel says that only 2 people in the world today know what he says is true, and this is why Bryan has refused to answer his challenge. Nigel says that this is why he needs to show up in Queens and he will beat Bryan and have vindication. Nigel says that even if Bryan doesn't show up, he will still be vindicated, and says that he hopes Bryan shows up. Nigel looks at the camera and then screams at the camera telling Bryan to show up, and as the show goes off the air,